Back at 7, but coming your way in just a moment at 6:30, it's Marketplace. After the re-election of Donald Trump, tariffs have been a hot topic, and now there's likely going to be a scramble to import as much as possible before prices go up.
The whole point of pulling inventory forward is to beat the clock when it comes to tariffs, but then you don't necessarily have a customer quite yet.
A look at how different parts of the supply chain are preparing. That's up next on Marketplace.
Support for WNYC comes from Netflix presenting Emilia Perez, Carla Sofia Gascon, Zoe Saldana, and Selena Gomez, starring director Jacques Audiard's latest film following 3 women each pursuing their own freedom, now playing in select theaters on Netflix November 13th.
WNYC, independent journalism in the public interest. 93.9 FM and AM 820. NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Marketplace is supported by Sendoso, the gifting and direct mail platform designed to help revenue teams double win rates and close deals faster. Learn more at sendoso.com/gift.
In case you were wondering.
So let me say that in the near term, the election will have no effects on our policy decisions.
Happy Fed Day, everybody. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Babbel for Business. Babbel's professional language learning platform offers practical and industry-specific language courses designed for faster, better learning and a more culturally inclusive workforce. Learn more at babbelforbusiness.com. And by VantageScore, a leading inclusive and predictive credit score used by 8 out of 10 largest banks and over 3,400 banks and fintechs nationwide. VantageScore drives financial inclusion by leveraging innovation. More at VantageScore.com. And by the John Templeton Foundation, funding interdisciplinary research and catalyzing conversations to inspire awe and wonder. Dive deeply into the wonders of the universe at templeton.org.
In Los Angeles, I'm Kai Risdell. It is Thursday today, the 7th day of November. Good as always to have you along, everybody. Question number 1 for Fed Chair Jay Powell at his post-meeting press conference today, right out the gate, was about the election. The short answer you heard up in the open. The slightly longer answer goes like this.
Now, just in principle, it's possible that any administration's policies or policies put in place by Congress could have economic effects that over time that would matter for our pursuit of our dual mandate goals.
The dual mandate, of course, just as a refresher, stable prices and maximum employment. As to the economic details, an as expected 0.25 percentage point cut in the federal funds rate because, as Powell did all but tick off on his fingers,
the economic activity data have been stronger than expected.
Item number 1.
The NIPA revision was stronger. Certainly the September employment report was stronger.
Item number 2.
The October report, not stronger.
Item 3.
Retail sales stronger.
Which gets us to...
So I think really the question is December.
You know where this is going, right? Longtime listeners will recognize the central bank's standby.
By December, we'll have more data. I guess 1 more employment report, 2 more inflation reports, and lots of other data. And, we'll make a decision as we get to December.
Data, more data. The next Fed meeting, 17-18 December. We'll meet you there. Wall Street today. Tech moved. Not too much else. We'll have the details when we do the numbers. Businesses across this economy are starting to think about what a change in the White House is going to mean for them. So we called one of our regulars, Austin Golding, to talk things over. He's the president and CEO of the family business Golding Barge Line in Vicksburg, Mississippi. Austin, good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you, Kai.
So as you know, the standard question when we chat is, how's business? I'm going to amend that and ask you how you expect business to be in the next 6 months to a year.
Well, Kai, thanks for having me. And we've had a really good year so far. I think we've got a correction back to pre-COVID levels. And I could see business not accelerating as fast as it has into this correction, but I think we'll be within a a 2 to 3% growth rate over the next 6 to 12 months.
And do you expect the changed politics of this economy to help you out?
I do. I think the energy I can feel within the energy sector is palpable. I think a lot of people see the future being a lot less headwinds. But I can tell you, Kai, the understanding that I get about sustainability and where we have to go, I have to say, it's not lost within our customer base. I think the emphasis on sustainability and knowing that a world where we evolve with the changing climate as opposed to bring everything to a halt because of it, I think people would much rather evolve through that process. So the path to sustainability is alive and well, but I do think there'll be less headwinds towards energy production and energy transport.
And we should point out here, just for those who aren't familiar, you carry a lot of oil and gas and petroleum products on those barges, right?
That's primarily what we carry. Yeah. And I will tell you, just through my short career, we have our propulsion engines have gone from a tier 1 to a tier 4, which for the average listener out there means a much cleaner emission out of the engine and a much more efficient engine. So, in moving these carbon products, even the people moving them are, we're very aware that sustainability is a near and dear part of our future, no matter what the political climate may suggest.
Another thing that the president-elect has talked a lot about is tariffs. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about that and what that might mean for you.
Sure. The oil and gas world, I don't know. I don't really look at these companies as American companies. I look at them as global entities. Yeah. And so I don't know, if it's the source material coming in and out, or if it's where the finished product can go, or how much we have to charge a tax on where it goes. I mean, we make a lot of the world's energy here and then ship it there. We have the best and most, I would say, efficient and environmentally friendly oil and gas kitchen, if you will, within the Gulf Coast of the United States. So I don't know. I hope that the global economy continues to rely on the United States, and we can play ball with everybody out there, because we are certainly part of that supply chain.
Yeah. So the unspoken thing here is retaliatory tariffs, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I will say, like I mentioned, these oil and gas companies are very international. Yeah. So I watched them navigate the different political climates in my career, and I know that this one may present more challenges, but they are a global entity. They are not patriotic in in many senses.
Mm-hmm. You said a minute ago in your short career, and I don't know how long we've been talking. It's got to be probably 5-7 years at least. So you've been doing this a while. What's the one thing that's on your mind as this economy evolves with the president-elect and what that's going to mean?
Sure. I think it's, the working environment that I've had. My career's coming up on 20 years in the industry, Kai.
Wow.
And
what you're like barely 40, man. Come on, right?
Well, look, it's a family business.
Yeah, that's true.
You start early.
That's right.
But I will say, we're looking for stability. We're looking for growth. We're looking for, I think, a world that is competitive and not mandated. And in my world, I think things like EV mandates, they don't just create a bottleneck at the car production level, but people stop investing in everything that supports oil and gas when that happens. And when that happens, it chokes everything down to where it's overpriced and underinvested in. And so, I think we're looking for a world that makes us evolve through competition, not through mandate. So I think that's where my focus is.
Austin Golding, running that family business. Well, he's been in it for 20 years. I don't know. You've been running it for 20 years now?
Oh, no. I'd earn that step. But no, 20 years, yeah. Been a good journey.
Wow. Vicksburg, Mississippi is where they are. Austin Golding at Golding Barge Lines. Austin, thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
Hey, talk to you. Thank you, Kai.
Economic life marches on this second day after the general election. Millions of Americans woke up, poured themselves a cup of coffee or a cup of tea if you like, and if remote work wasn't really an option, set off on that bleary-eyed commute to the office. Millions of Americans will do the same thing tomorrow and all the days after. And it turns out a lot of those trips to the office now are happening via rideshare. Lyft said this week nearly half of the company's weekday rides are commuters. That's a bigger share than it was back in 2019. Marketplace's Matt Levin explains the growing appeal of the rideshare commute.
The idea of paying for an Uber or Lyft every day to schlep you to and from work sounds prohibitively expensive, but maybe just 2 or 3 schleps a week?
Because people work hybrid, work from home some of the days of the week, that changes the economics.
Jeremy Mahalik is a professor at Carnegie Mellon who studies urban transportation. He says remote work has allowed commuters to reconsider the expense of owning a car versus relying more on rideshare, which sounds like great news for carbon emissions, but if you live in San Francisco or New York, you probably weren't driving into the office anyway.
Cities that have higher wealth and fewer children are the ones where people seem to shift away from public transit and take an Uber instead.
Lyft is capitalized on the rideshare commute trend, offering a popular subscription option that caps the price of repeat routes at the same time of day. Lyft's Jason Tan says most rideshare commuters are still generally heading into the office around 9 and home around 5. But since hybrid work also means days in the office are often more intentionally social, team dinners, happy hours, that type of thing, rideshare gives you options.
Maybe you want flexibility in the evening so that you can go out and be with your coworkers for a little bit.
Rideshare drivers hope those happy hours extend late into the night. LA Lyft and Uber driver Sergio Avidian, who writes for the website The Rideshare Guy, says serving the 1 a.m. exiting the bar crowd is generally more lucrative than commutes.
Not everybody is willing to take that risk and drive at those hours. So the supply is not there and demand is a lot stronger. That's when surges show up.
But he says even if the tips are lighter and the traffic is heavier for commuting trips, there are other perks.
I prefer morning and afternoon rush hours. People are awake.
And thus less likely to make a mess in the back seat. I'm Matt Levin for Marketplace.
It was quite a day for ticker symbol WBD. Should that one escape you, it's Warner Brothers Discovery, which has been, shall we say, troubled of late. But some salvation is coming from its streaming service, Max. It added 7.2 million new subscribers in the third quarter, the biggest quarterly increase since it launched back in 2020 when it was still called HBO Max, if you remember those days. Other streamers, Netflix and Peacock among them, have been seeing increases in subscribers as well. Marketplace's Stephanie Hughes has more on that.
Most of Max's new subscribers are located outside of the U.S. and Canada. And one reason they're subscribing now is they couldn't before.
Until the beginning of this year, Max was a U.S.-only service, basically.
Seth Schaefer is a principal analyst at S&P Global. He says another driver, at least for viewers in Europe,
if you wanted to stream kind of Olympics coverage, Max was a place to go to.
It wasn't just super athletes bringing people in, but super villains, too. David Arditi, author of the book Streaming Culture, points to the success of the Max show, The Penguin.
You've got Batman fans. You create the Penguin that's going to drive a particular population to the subscription platform.
International subscribers don't pay as much on average for Max as viewers in the U.S. Charles Schrager, who teaches marketing at NYU and Fordham and used to be an HBO executive, points out that in the third quarter, Max took in about $12 a month on average from domestic users. Internationally, it was about $4.
You know, if you're selling a streaming service in a country that has less wealth, you offer it at a much more modest price because that's what the economy will absorb.
Across the industry, companies are using different tactics to add more subscribers, says Seth Schaefer at S&P Global. Netflix has grown by launching a less expensive tier that has ads. Also, it's cracked down on password sharing. And he says that's a way other streaming services could up their subscriber numbers too.
You know, we all have a service or two that we're borrowing a password to access these days still. Like, I won't mention the one that I'm borrowing at the moment, but it's just really common.
Schaefer also says Netflix and Amazon are investing heavily in local language programming, which is expensive, but a way to keep people around once they're done watching standard Hollywood fare. I'm Stephanie Hughes for Marketplace.
But wait, what's the common password? Okay, coming up.
Likely the riskiest and most complex transaction a company might ever do.
Mergers and acquisitions, gang. But first, sure, why not? Let's do the numbers. Dow Industrial's down less than a point today. We'll call that flat because it is 43,729. NASDAQ increased 285 points, 1.5%, 19,269. The S&P 500 up 44 points, 0.75%, 5973. Matt Levin was talking about the growth of the ride-share commute. Uber slowed 1.7% today. Lyft, which just reported more than $1.5 billion in third quarter revenue and beat estimates to boot, surged 22.9%. According to NASDAQ's earnings calendar, there are literally hundreds of companies reporting today. Airbnb ascended 4.6%. Vaccine maker Moderna subtracted 2.9%. The betting giant DraftKings added 1.9% today. WBD, which I mentioned up in Stephanie Hughes' piece, up 11.8% today. Bonds up. Yield on the 10-year T-note 4.32%. You're listening to Marketplace.
The Numbers is supported by Odoo.com, your entire business on one platform. Marketplace is supported by Solidigm. Today's AI ambitions require a different approach to storage. Solidigm offers solid-state storage solutions optimized for AI with higher capacities, greater speed, and energy efficiency. StorageForAI.com. And by Baird. Baird strives to attract and retain top financial talent, providing stability and continuity for clients. More at BairdDifference.com. And by Rubrik. When cyber attacks put businesses at risk, Rubrik provides the power to bounce back fast. More at Rubrik.com.
WNYC is supported by Gibney Company, performing contemporary dance works from choreographers William Forsythe, Emily Lariche, and Matutu Zele November. Up close, December 10 through 14 at New York Live Arts. Tickets at newyorklivearts.org.
Republicans dominated the election, with Donald Trump winning the presidency and Republicans taking back control of the Senate.
Frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country and maybe beyond.
I'm Meghna Chakrabarti. We'll take a look at the path ahead for Trump and congressional Republicans. That's on the next On Point. Weeknights at 8 on 93.9 FM, AM 820, or live stream it at WNYC.org.
You're listening to Marketplace on WNYC. Coming your way in the 7 o'clock hour of All Things Considered, pressure is building on German Chancellor Olaf Scholz for early elections. That's after the government there collapses. We'll have that story and much more at 7 o'clock. Stay tuned.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Ryssdal. You know how on days Jay Powell has a press conference, we only play you short-ish snippets of what he said? Because, monetary policy, right? We are actually going to play you a good long chunk of Powell right now because it's a pretty interesting example of how the Fed goes about deciding what it's going to do. He was asked this morning about bond yields, which, as we have been telling you, have been going up. And he was asked whether he's worried about those yields going even higher with the higher deficits that Congress and the Trump administration might run.
So we no comment on fiscal policy. And again, I don't have a lot more to say on what's driving bond yields. In terms of policy changes, though, let me give you a sense of how this works in the ordinary case. Let's say Congress is considering a rewrite of the tax laws. Doesn't matter what's in the content. So we would follow that. At a certain point, we'd think we see the outline, so we'd start to model it. And then we'd wait, and then at a certain point, the staff would brief the FOMC and say, these are the likely effects. There's lots and lots of literature on the effects of tax policy changes on various parts of the economy. So we'd try to get smart on that, and then the law actually passes. And you'd start to put it. You'd probably run an alternative simulation before that happens, just to keep people trying to understand it. Then when it actually passes, it goes into the model, along with a million other things. So, we have a very large economy. Many things are affecting it at any given time, and a law change of some kind would go in there, but it would go in. But it would, it's a process that takes some time. Clearly, the legislative process takes a lot of time, and of course, the real question is not the effect of that law. It's all of the policy changes that are happening. What's the net effect? And, the overall effect on the economy at any given time. So I think that's a process that takes a lot of time and that we go through all the time with every administration. constantly, and this will be no different. But right now there's nothing to model right now. It's such an early stage. We don't know what the policies are, and once we know what they are, we won't have a sense of when they'll be implemented or all those sorts of things. So I think I would just say we're not doing that now, and all that will take time, and it will be very much regular order when we do that.
That was a lot, I know, a little bit nerdy too, but it is a pretty good insight into how the gears of this economy are going to grind over the next couple of years. While the president-elect has been pretty clear about his plans for this economy, there still is a certain degree of what if that has to be factored in. For us today, the what if of his plans for new tariffs, which, to remind, are for import taxes of up to 20% on all imported goods, 60% on everything coming from China. Again, and for the umpteenth time, if that does happen, businesses would pass most, if not all, of those costs of those tariffs onto consumers. But businesses don't want to do that, right? Raising prices does not endear a company to its customers. And there is still some time between now and whenever those tariffs are going to be put into place. So what if, to beat the clock, those businesses just start ordering ahead? Marketplace's Kristen Schwab is back on the tariff beat today with the rush to import.
Grant Hennigan, who owns a small chain of outdoor furniture stores in North and South Carolina, is hoping to double his imports from China as soon as possible.
We've been talking to our vendors in the last couple of days, trying to understand what their capacity is and what availability will be.
It's not looking so hot. Suppliers have already received extra orders ahead of the Lunar New Year in January, when factories shut down for weeks. Plus, lots of U.S. businesses are rushing to ramp up production too. Meanwhile, the inauguration is less than 3 months away.
The tariff is going to affect you at the time of customs clearance, which may be 4 to 5 months from the time you've placed your order. So I think time is against us if we wanted to get more product in the first quarter of next year.
It's unclear when or even if tariffs are coming, but Brian Burke, CCO at Seco Logistics, says businesses are preparing the way they did when the Trump administration imposed tariffs in 2018.
Never once has a country paid those. The importers pay those, and the importers will look to mitigate against rising costs in any way that they can.
Even if it's a gamble. Burke says shipping and storage rates will rise with demand, and it means spending money on stuff that might sit for a while or not sell at all.
The whole point of pulling inventory forward is to beat the clock when it comes to tariffs, but then you don't necessarily have a customer quite yet.
Trends come and go, so do seasons and seasonal goods. Some items even become obsolete. Willie Shih is a professor of management practice at Harvard.
So you don't want to have 6 months or a year's worth of inventory of notebook computers, okay? And when it becomes excess when the newer models come out, and you don't want the old stuff.
It means some companies can't stock up. I'm Kristen Schwab for Marketplace.
Let's pretend for a second that you're the CEO of a big corporation and you want to make a bet on the future of your company. If you're optimistic, you might want to expand by investing in new hiring or new machinery or new locations. And you might issue new bonds or stock to raise the money you're going to need to do all that expansion. That kind of thing has been booming this year because, in part, borrowing money is starting to get cheaper. But there is a different kind of corporate bet that a CEO could make. You could merge with or acquire one of your competitors. That actually has not been happening very much. This year, in fact, on track to be the slowest for mergers and acquisitions in more than a decade. That is data from the research company Dealogic. And as Marketplace's Justin Ho reports, that slowdown in M&A is kind of an economic indicator.
Companies buy one another for a variety of reasons. It could be to expand geographically, to sell more types of products, to cut costs. But whatever the reason, a merger or an acquisition can be extremely risky.
and likely the riskiest and most complex transaction a company might ever do.
That's Drew Pascarella. He teaches finance at Cornell University, and he spent about 25 years advising companies on mergers and acquisitions. He says buying a company starts with spending millions upon millions of dollars. Then the buyer will have to combine two corporate cultures, convince employees, shareholders, and customers that the purchase is the right move, and hope that nothing bad happens in the broader economy.
You know, if you're doing a deal where the whole point is to sell much more product into the market over the next couple of years, and then the economy goes into the tank and people aren't buying product at all, well, now you've doubled down on your ability to sell product, and there's no market for those products.
That's why Pascarella says mergers and acquisitions are the ultimate bets that a company can make on its future, on the success of the combined company and the economy at large. That means if there's a big pickup in M&A activity,
executives and boards of directors and ultimately shareholders are feeling comfortable enough with what tomorrow will look like that they're willing to take that big risky bet.
Over the last few years, companies have not been all that comfortable with what tomorrow will look like, says Christina Sauter, a law professor at Southern Methodist University. She says a big unknown has been inflation and how it could affect consumer spending. Also, where interest rates will end up, because they affect the initial cost of a merger and how much the combined company might need to invest after the deal closes.
It's just hard to plan for financing of their continuing operations to keep the company running as usual.
Sauter says political uncertainty has been a factor too. The Biden administration's taken a hard line against deals that it says could reduce competition. And up until this week, there was a lot of uncertainty around the election. That said, a lot of the economic uncertainty behind the M&A slowdown has started to clear up. Inflation is coming down, so are interest rates. And Afra Afsharipur, a law professor at UC Davis, says some companies have been laying the groundwork for deals.
And that might mean that the sellers are really kind of putting their books in order or putting their house in order to make themselves attractive to buyers.
Afsharipur says that's most likely to happen in sectors that have been growing quickly. Take the tech industry, for example.
One of the things that buyers are really thinking about is evaluating kind of how AI might impact their business models, and sort of a lot of investments and looking into potential purchases of companies that are much more focused on AI.
And if M&A starts to pick up, Afsharipur says there's a lot of research showing that CEOs tend to get a little jealous when competitors start buying other companies.
The executive sees that their competitor has just bought another big company, and now the CEO is a CEO of a much larger company, then that person might think, well, I want to be the CEO of a much larger company.
As a result, Afsharipur says a series of deals in a particular industry can cause M&A activity to snowball, as long as companies feel confident about the broader economy. I'm Justin Ho for Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Progressive Insurance. Progressive is looking for individuals who want to join an inclusive and unique culture. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers. And by the Peter G. Peterson Foundation, a nonpartisan organization dedicated to raising awareness and accelerating action on America's fiscal challenges to build a brighter economic future for the next generation. Learn more at pgpf.org.
This final note on the way out today, which I'll set up by noting that a week and a half ago, we devoted the entire show to the political independence of the Federal Reserve should the election turn out the way the election turned out. One key slice of that is, could President Trump fire or otherwise force Chair Jay Powell out? Powell was asked about that today.
Hi, Victoria Guido with Politico. Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No.
We are, however, going to leave. John Buckley, John Gordon, Noya Carr, Diantha Parker, Amanda Peacher, and Stephanie Seek are the Marketplace editing staff. Amir Babawe is the managing editor. I'm Kai Rizdal. We will see you tomorrow, everybody. This is 8 p.m.
WNYC supporters include